Hi, welcome back to another lesson. I'm Joe Carswell, and this one is all about a really important and handy marking tool, the chalk line. Let's get right into it. So this tool is great when we're building. We can make a long straight mark with this tool as long as you need, even 30 or 40 feet long. The basic idea with a chalk line is that a string under tension makes a straight line. So if we run this straight line on any surface and we add chalk to it, we can make a mark that's as straight as the string was. You can use this for different places when you're building, like marking a floor for wall placement. You can use it for marking a panel to then run a freehand saw to cut on that line, or you could mark the center line of a framed wall to then run blocking along that line. All of these are great uses for a chalk line. The chalk we use to mark with a chalk line comes in different colors. Some of those colors are more permanent, some of them are less permanent, and of course the color you choose should be in contrast to the surface that you're marking on so that it can be seen. You can run the gamut here between a red or a black chalk that are very permanent and they last a long time, to ones that are less permanent like a white or a blue. If you needed something that was more visible, there are high visibility colors like you see here as well. No matter what color chalk you choose, all of this stuff is really messy. I probably have it on myself by now, but it is not a finished marking tool. So you would be using this in the rough construction, rough framing stages of building, and the line itself is not a perfect, precise line. The string itself is over a 1/16 thick, so you will get a quality of line maybe like a Sharpie or a marker. Chalk lines are not only good for marking lines, but they can also help us find plumb. We can use certain chalk lines as plumb bobs, and a plumb bob will have a point on the end of it. We can use the weight of the chalk line and we can hang it. It will hang perfectly vertical because of gravity, and we know that this point here is directly above this point here. So let's take a close look at a chalk line and identify some of its parts. All of these chalk lines look a little different, but the parts are the same. We talked about the line or the string for the chalk line. That's what makes the mark. That string is wound into a case. This case contains not only the string and the reel that the string is wound around, but also the chalk that's going to coat the string. We have a handle on this chalk line. That's how we will wind this string back into the case to then recoat it to make another mark. And the last thing to talk about is the hook on the chalk line. This is a feature that's very similar to a tape measure. It works the same way. If we have a hard edge, we can hook this on that edge and we can use this tool solo. It also could hook on a nail. You see that the hook has a hole in it. So if we put a nail in, if we don't have a hard edge, we can use it that way. At the end of our marks, we need to wind the string back into the case. And it's an important part of the process that the string does not stay out of the case. It gets wound in directly. And we have to wind it in a specific direction. So that's always in a clockwise motion. And clockwise would be as you're facing it or as you're looking at it. So for you, that would be this way. I would always wind it in this direction. If you get confused and you wind it in the other direction, it will actually jam up and knot up that string inside the chalk line and the tool's no good anymore. If you get confused about what direction you should wind the chalk line, pull a little string out and watch the handle. The handle is going to turn in the opposite direction that you need to wind it. So it's moving in this direction, so I'll wind it this way to reel it back in. Hi, sorry for the interruption. I had a quick message for you. We offer a lot of other lessons at our learning portal, which is tradeskillsu.com. If you're a teacher and you've found us here, we have a ton of other resources to help you with your students teach them construction in a digital environment. You can find those at teachconstruction.org. Once again, thanks for watching. Let's get back to the video. I don't know if you can see this, but at this point I have chalk all over my hands. I've been handling the string, and this chalk will get on anything that I touch. So as I'm building, I have to be very aware that this chalk is getting transferred onto my hands and all over everything. It will even come out of the case sometimes when you pull the string out, And even when you snap the line, it doesn't end up just where you mark it. It can go a little further than that. So always remember that a chalk line is something that is just messy. That has to do with where you store it, how you store it, where you keep it, where you set it down, and how you handle it. Talking about making a mess, there's nothing more messy than filling this chalk line with chalk. All of them have a port, which is a door that slides open where you fill it. This one here has a cap that screws off of the end. They're all a little different. They need to be filled, and this is where it gets really messy. Make sure that you're near or over a trash can when you do this, and that it's completely under control. Once you get the fill port open, you're going to take a bottle of chalk that has a small nozzle on it. You're going to put it as far as you can into the case, and when you squeeze that chalk bottle, it's going to puff all of that chalk into the case. You don't want to overfill the case. You just need a moderate amount of chalk in there. I find that overfilled cases become even more messy and hard to control, and the marks you make with them are really not as good. Once the chalk line's filled, it's ready to go. Make sure that your string is retracted all the way into the case. That's a clockwise direction of the handle. Once we've loaded chalk in the case, now we can shake it or tap it. This will coat the string so that now it's ready to mark. Speaking of marking, let's go ahead and do that. So first I need 2 points to mark to. I'm going to go ahead and make a mark in the center of this board here. I have my point A and point B. That's all I need. I'll pull out my chalk line, and if I have not loaded it yet, I'll do that by shaking it or tapping it. I need to make sure that my handle is free. Right now, it's locked into the case. There's a small divot or dent in this case where the handle fits into it. That's an important part of the step, but for right now, we need it free. So we're going to move it out in a sort of this straight out position. That way, when I pull on the string, my hand doesn't get hung up on that handle. So we need to pull out enough string to make our mark. I will hook it on this mark on this side. I'm going to add tension to the string. I need it tight, and this side of the string needs to line up with my second mark. I'm keeping the tension on the string. Now I need to lift up towards the center of the string, lift up on it, and then let it go really quickly. Once you do that, the string is going to snap down on the surface, and as you can see, it leaves a nice even line where the string hit, and that's all the chalk that came out of the string. You can give it a little blow to get rid of any extra, to clean it up a little bit. As you can see here, that's the quality of line that you can expect from a chalk line. So let's do one more. I'm going to mark another line on here. Keep in mind, we're doing this on a very short surface here for the camera. These would be much longer lines in real life in the field. So you can count on this process is the same, it's just a longer line. So I've made my marks here, point A and point B. I want a straight line between them. I will hook my hook on the first line and then reel out the line, making sure that the handle, I stay out of the way of the handle as it's winding out. I put my second mark on my string. I've got this lined up. I'm keeping it tight. I'm doing this with my fingers. That's one way to do it. You can also do it by locking the handle into the case, and you can pull on the handle. No matter what you do, you just need tension on that string. That's what makes your straight line. I'll lift up on the center of this string. I'm going to pull straight up, and I want to let go very quickly. What you have there is a continuous line made by the chalk, and it's straight. If I was to pull from one direction or the other, not pull straight up, sometimes the string can bounce. It can make sort of ghost lines or multiple marks. So make sure you pull straight up and let go very quickly under tension. One thing I wanted to point out on these lines is you might notice here that I don't have any mark in the first 1.5 inches here. That's because the hook doesn't accept any chalk, and so the line is the only part that will make the mark. So if you wanted a continuous line all the way over to the edge, you would have to extend that string over before you snapped it. If you notice these lines, the first line is much darker, a lot more chalk on that line. You can get sometimes up to 2 marks out of one loading of the chalk line, but you see what happens. This is a much lighter line. That might be what you're after, or it might be good enough to use. So you can either reset or reload the chalk line for every mark. Sometimes you can get 2 marks out of it. That goes even quicker. So this example I have here, blue chalk on a very light and finished piece of plywood. In the field, you might not have that ideal situation. What we see here is a lot of contrast, and we can pick out our lines very easily. You might have something like this, very common material, which is OSB. So what you'll have here is you have a darker material, and we have our blue chalk. Let's mark a line on here and see how that goes. I'll wind my chalk line in. We're going to tap it or shake it to load it. Now I can wind it out, making sure that handle stays free or clear. And now I'm putting it under tension. When I snap it on this OSB, you'll see that that blue line is not as obvious as it was for the lighter material. And this might be a chance for us to choose a different color, something like the red or the black that would show up better. So your choice of chalk colors has to do with how visible this needs to be, how permanent it needs to be, and what is the material you're marking on. Many times for longer chalk line marks, you would be using 2 people. The person that's on the hook end can pull the hook over the edge. You get a nice continuous line. I would be on the other end, bringing tension on the line and snapping it. And you could do this for, like I mentioned before, 20, 30, 40 feet long marks. If you don't have someone on the hook end, or if you don't have a hard edge, you can always drive a nail into wherever you need to start your mark, turn the hook upside down, and hook it over that nail. That will hold it tightly while you're on the other end snapping the line. So great general purpose marking tool. This is one you should have in your bag with all of your other marking tools. And remember what this tool does. It makes long, quick, repetitive, straight marks on rough materials. Remember the mess that it makes. Respect the fact that it has chalk in it, and that can ruin some things. And also remember that you should always wind the chalk line in a clockwise motion. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next lesson.